Joining me now is Ray Nearhood. Ray is the Republican candidate for the Scranton City Controller position. Good morning, Ray. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank
you. Normally what I would do is a brief bio of the candidate, but this year, because we have a new online voter guide, we're going to point you to our website, lwvlackawanna.org, and vote411.org, and you can read more about the candidate and his answers to a few of our questions as well. So with that, we're actually going to hop right into questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, what are the duties of this office that you're seeking?
Well, the duties of the city controller. The city controller is the chief financial watchdog of the city. The duties are to actually look at every expenditure, every contract, sign every check, make sure that payments are being done properly and that improper payments are not being made. You need to make sure that when we're bidding for products or services, that it's being done in accordance to law. The other duty is to watch the budget, make sure that we are not overspending in any particular line item. The mayor proposes a budget, council passes a budget, that establishes appropriations for each individual item in the budget, and then we need to adhere to that. I think that's one of the problems the city's been facing in the past, is the fact that it has not been adhering to its budget, and some of the budget numbers seem to have been a bit askew. That's why we're facing the deficit we have today. So those are some of the things. The city controller also does audits, can also do financial studies of different departments, different functions of what's going on in the city. And that is one of the important parts of the position in order to help the city work through its fiscal problems.
Okay. Ray, what qualifies you to run for this office? And cite any relevant experience that you have, whether it's governmental, managerial, personal, professional, whatever it would be. Basically, tell the voters why you and not your opponent.
Okay. I have a master's degree in public administration from Penn State University. While doing my master's degree, I specialized in city management and oriented myself in that direction, that and planning. My graduate paper really dealt with the fiscal impacts of land development on a particular community I was working in at the time. I was working as a planning and zoning officer for Lower Paxton Township, which is a suburban Harrisburg community that was very fast growing at the time. I have worked in city and municipal government for many years. I've served as an assistant township manager for a large township in Bucks County that was in excess of 50,000 population. There I ran the codes department, what would be known as the codes department here. It was known as license and inspections there. I also reviewed all land development subdivision plans. I then went to another Bucks County community as the township manager. Once again, a large township, which really is made up of Levittown, Fairless Hills. I served there for a number of years, ran the budget, dealt with fiscal problems. That particular township at the time was facing a downturn in its largest industry, which was U.S. Steel Fairless. The steel mill was going down. I've also served as a city manager, City of Altoona, city administrator in Nanticoke. I helped Nanticoke avoid distress status back in the late 90s. Of course, it fell into it a few years after I left. So in many cases, I've dealt with government and local government and city government. I've also been a consultant to a lot of city and municipal governments throughout Pennsylvania when I was at the Pennsylvania Economy League.
Okay, thank you. What do you believe is the appropriate role for the city controller in the city's budget process, and does there need to be any change in our current process now?
Well, the city controller in the budget process is really the duties outlined are mainly after the budget is passed. But in fact, I think that the city controller should also be involved in the beginning of the budget while it's being considered, by providing the financial information that's necessary, not only for the mayor, of course he has a business administrator to help him with that, but also for council, and providing a basis an independent basis of where the city sits with regard to various items of revenue and expenditure. Often these things can be skewed to get the results that one wants, and there needs to be somebody who doesn't have, how can I say it, a dog in that fight, you know, to provide independent information. And that's really what I see the controller's role in that part of the budget process. As I said earlier, on the other side, it's making sure that everyone is adhering to the budget, watching the budget very closely, making sure that the budget isn't being overspent, looking very hard at the encumbrance system and make sure that money that is being encumbered does not exceed the amounts that are appropriated. If at any point that is happening, if we're coming up to the end of an appropriation and there's no money left in that account, you then have to warn people of what's happening, and if they continue without taking the necessary actions to make any amendments, then you simply stop allowing any spending. You don't approve purchase orders and you don't sign checks. So you make sure everybody, that's what it is, control of the budget, control of the finances.
Okay, thank you. According to the city's home rule charter, the Controller's Office is responsible for providing monthly and annual reports on the city's fiscal health to the mayor, council, and to the general public. Is the office funded and capable of delivering all expected audits and reports in the prescribed time frames? Why or why not?
Well, I know that the current controller has argued that audits with regard to the single tax office weren't done because appropriations were not provided. And I'm not going to sit here and say that she's totally wrong. Council and the mayor do have an obligation, as in that case did the school district and the county have an obligation to fund those audits. The problem that I see is if the appropriations are not being provided, she also has a solicitor and she needs to take legal action. And she should have taken legal action against both the mayor and the council to force the proper appropriations to do those legal duties. With regard to other audits, the city audit is not done by the city controller. That's actually under the responsibility of city council. But she is, that position is to provide the information that's necessary for that audit to be done quickly. And I know that's one of the ongoing problems that they have. Yes, and there should be monthly and annual reports being provided. One of the most important, of course, is the one dealing with the budget and where we are with regard to the budget on a monthly basis. So that once again, those who are elected with the responsibilities of making those appropriations, the mayor and council can take action. And once again, lacking taking that action, then we would need to basically bring it to a halt. Say fix it or we're done till new appropriations are made. The city can't continue spending money it doesn't have.
Okay, thank you. What improvements are needed in this office in your estimation, and what is your approach or plan to address them?
Well, it's merely a matter of becoming very, very intent on making sure that we adhere to the ordinances of the city and the laws of the state with regard to purchasing and with regard to spending of the city's money, making sure that the taxpayers' money is not being wasted. So, you know, the improvements are just basically, as I see it, be doing the job, making sure that we are adhering to the law. And also, I think that the next step is the city controller should be providing more information and analysis of what is going on in the city, how we're spending our money, and how we could save money. You know, there is grant money available. The controller could be looking at that and bringing it to people's attention, but also making sure, once again, that we're not wasting money. And I think that there has been a lot of waste in the city, and at least the city has not budgeted properly, and it has not put the reins on spending when they see that the revenues are not coming in that were being expected. You know, I would take a very hard look at what's going on with our tax exempts, for instance. You know, there is an expansion of tax exempt property in the city of Scranton. How is that helping or hurting the city? Should we be going to those tax exempts and asking them for money? Taxes and payment in lieu of taxes, which a lot of cities are receiving. We should be looking at how we're providing various services. Our Parks and Recreation Department, you know, we're now talking about expanding and creating a new park when we in fact cannot take care of the parks we already have.
Okay, thank you. How easily can the public access financial information about the city, and how could the Comptroller's Office contribute to increased transparency and availability of the city's finances and their financial information to the general public?
Well, I went on the City Comptroller tab on online with regard to the city, and there's very little there. There could be reports being put up. They could be posted so people could have access to that information. It's really not easy to get a lot of the information. You can get a copy of the budget. That normally gets posted. The audits are posted, but we're well behind. We're very much behind on the audits, so some of the information is very dated. So the City Comptroller's Office could be providing more information online. Those monthly reports could be put online, and probably should be put online so that everyone can see what is happening with regard to the finances of the city.
Okay. My last question is really one concerning structure of the city, and this one is, do you believe this position in particular should be an elected position or appointed by the mayor and or council through a process of open competition? And why do you feel the way that you feel?
Well, having been a chief executive of a city, I would have liked to have said that the controller not be elected. Okay, I prefer that I would have been able to appoint them. Truth of the matter is this position should be independent. It should be independent of both the mayor and council. It should not be in a position where it is reporting to one or the other. It should be reporting to the citizens of the city of Scranton. And also it should report its information to both the mayor and council. But neither of them should be telling it what to do, okay? Because this information needs to be independent. It can't be being put in a position where it is being used for some political agenda, okay? The facts are facts, and they shouldn't be skewed.
Okay. That actually concludes all the questions that I have for you today, but you still have 2 minutes to give your closing statement.
Okay. The city of Scranton has, for a couple of decades now, been facing distress. We're continuing to run up against the wall of not having enough revenues to cover our expenditures. What has happened over the years is there's been a lot of accounting gimmicks and budgetary tricks used, and borrowings and selling of capital assets in order to hide what's going on. It's time we really start looking very hard at what's happening in this city. We start making some of the hard decisions. Because trust me, there are a lot of people who are making that decision. A lot of people today are voting with their feet. They're leaving the city. We're losing a lot of businesses in the city. It's time we get our fiscal house in order, and by getting our fiscal house in order, we can get other things in order as well. We can't continue down this road. You know, I read in the newspaper recently that there's consideration of borrowing more money to pay for operating costs for this current budget year, and rolling those costs into the future. We can't afford that. We can't afford to continue doing that. We see what's happened with the county of Lackawanna. Moody's has dropped their bond rating tremendously. They're looking to borrow $21 million. The city is looking to borrow what? The number keeps jumping around, so I can't actually tell you. One day it's 6.5 million, another day it's 8.4 million. What is the number we're dealing with? That's what the city controller needs to be doing. Needs to be helping establish those numbers so that we have a true basis of where we are today. So that's where I think the city needs to be going. I think this has to be an independent position. I don't think it should be a position that is beholden to anyone. Thank you, except the citizens of the city of Scranton. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our interview with Ray Nearhood. Again, Ray is the Republican candidate for the Scranton City Controller position. And again, you can visit lwvlackawanna.org to read more information about Ray and his position on the issues. Thank you.